The events of the week revolved around four topics: negotiations on freezing the war in Ukraine, the rapid advance of Assad's opponents in Syria, the toughening of the Georgian dreamers, and the increasing activity of Trump and his team. Zelensky's representative, Yermak, who arrived in Washington, outlined the strong points from which to start a conversation with the Russians, and the Kremlin released Lavrov, who stated that Russia and the United States are in a state of hybrid war and shook the old Oreshnik again, calling the main condition for ending the war no NATO. It is clear that any paper signed by the Russians is worth nothing, so if the war freezes, peacekeeping forces of European allies will come to Ukraine. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has already announced that the Bundeswehr will send its units to Ukraine. And Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that Kyiv will receive another aid package from the United States before Donald Trump's inauguration in January 2025. The military part of the aid includes hundreds of thousands of additional artillery shells, thousands of missiles and hundreds of armored vehicles. And this is the last thing that the outgoing Biden, who wanted to save Ukraine so much, but in the end only saved his son Hunter, can do. Lavrov wove a lot of verbal patterns in an interview with Tucker Carlson, but the main idea is simple. Our wishes are not up for discussion. Ukraine will do as we say, otherwise, we will continue to kill. But something tells me that the last word will not even be with Yermak and Zelensky, but with the people of Ukraine, who are fighting for their land, independence and the future of their children. Putin's friend, Assad, has fateful troubles. The rebels are not even advancing, but literally rushing, capturing one city after another while Assad's army is scattering and deserting. There are no more support forces from Iran and Hezbollah, and Russia does not understand at all what to do, and the Kremlin is already seriously considering plans to evacuate those forces that are still left. But just in case, in order to avoid accusations of inaction, the Russian aerospace forces struck the bridge near the town of Rastan, which leads to the city of Homs, where the Syrian rebels are now rushing. If everything continues to fall apart as it is now, the situation will be similar to Afghanistan, with the only difference that the US officially left itself, leaving the national government one-on-one with the Taliban, while in Syria it will be a complete defeat for Russia, which showed up there in 2015, ensuring the preservation of the Assad regime. In Georgia, the dream is mutating into authoritarianism. Searches and arrests in the offices of opposition parties only increase the level of discontent, no matter what the illegitimate government figures say. While the media publish lists of brutal security officials, dreamers blame the wave of violence on the opposition and promise peaceful and stable development of the country. The line of behavior of the Georgian dream is painfully reminiscent of the desperate lies of the Russian United Russia, who have creepingly usurped power. The only difference is that a KGB agent was sitting in the Kremlin, and in Tbilisi, the shadow master of the country, billionaire Ivanishvili, is pulling the strings. But the drift towards Russia has already been outlined. The rhetoric is that everyone is to blame: the West, Europe, the United States, the opposition, but not the Kremlin dream, which wants the best. And this means that the conflict between the government and society will inevitably escalate. Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili said that the Prime Minister, who could not resolve the crisis and only knows how to threaten the people, must be replaced. And in Washington, the influence of Trump and his team is growing every day. And it's not even about the changing mood of Wall Street players or the impressive rally in Bitcoin. Trump's image and desires are being adjusted to real circumstances when he has to soften his rhetoric or change his appointees on the fly. The system of checks and balances does not allow the United States to be turned into a clearing for chaos. By the way, no one remembers the delirious statements about ending the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. No planning for the future of Ukraine without Ukraine and European allies is possible, no matter how Putin and Trump slander each other. Yes, Europe is shaking. Germany is preparing for elections, and in France, the Barnier government has been dismissed. Romania, on the eve of the second round of elections, risks ending up in the arms of the pro-Putin candidate Georgescu. In the eastern direction, The crisis has engulfed South Korea, where President Yoon Suk-yeol is facing impeachment. And this situation is the focus of increased attention in Moscow, Pyongyang and Beijing. Britain and Cyprus have held emergency talks over the Russian threat to bases in Gibraltar. It seems that the world is deliberately going crazy, but it has always relieved tension through wars. The only question is the scale of destruction and the depth of bloody rivers. A good dictator is a dead dictator. It's just a pity that there are too many Hitler babies, and they continue to multiply.